Hi, I'm Tony Costa, Principal Clarinet with the Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra, and today I want to talk to you about hand position on the clarinet as well as how to practice technical passages. So it's important, first of all, before we pick up the clarinet, is talk about our hands and how we use them to play the clarinet. So we always want our fingers to be curved, kind of like a C, and it's important to realize that when we're lifting and closing our fingers on the clarinet that we want to keep them curved. It's very easy sometimes when we lift our fingers off the clarinet to straighten the finger, remembering that we want to keep it curved as it comes up. Now, where do we move our fingers from? So oftentimes when I ask students where that is, they point to right here, this crease on their hands. If you put your finger like this and try to move your fingers there, you can't do it actually. This is a secondary crease. You actually are moving your fingers from what is the palm of your hand right here. So if you put your fingers here, it's very easy to move your fingers, and that's where that movement comes from. Moving our fingers again as a curved unit. So remembering that, then we have to remember how to utilize our hands on the clarinet. And the clarinet is an open hole system, so our fingers have to be very precise in how they come in contact with the instrument. So with the right hand, which supports the weight of the clarinet, what I recommend to my students is that they hold the clarinet like so, make it into like a keyboard instrument. Put their first finger down, their second finger down, third finger down, and then their pinky, and then bring their thumb around. Therefore, they're letting the fingers dictate the thumb position. And from my thumb position, you can see it's oftentimes closer to the thumbnail than like this. A lot of students start in 4th grade, 5th grade, and their hands grow and they don't ever make that adjustment with their thumb position. So a lot of students I have to slide out towards their thumbnail a little bit more in order for their pinkies not to lock up when otherwise they crowd those fingers. So that's the right hand. The left hand, you have to be able, we talked about curved fingers. This finger tends, your ring finger tends to be straight, and the pinky too. So for me, what I do is I put those fingers down first on the clarinet, keeping that curved, and then building the rest of my hand position from there. Remembering that I'm rolling to the teardrop keys or the throat tones like this, rather than lifting them up like a keyboard, computer keyboard that is. So I roll them. And then one important thing is to remember that there is a larger space between these two fingers because there's a key there. So I tell my students, remember there's a peace sign in your left hand because there's a bigger gap there. Sometimes when a student's squeaking or leaking, it's because this finger is actually moving up, trying to be equidistant from those fingers rather than a bigger gap there. So next I want to show you some patterns that I use when I practice a technical passage. And this is just an example passage that I made up to demonstrate this. So let's say that passage is very technical and I'm having a lot of difficulty with it. So rather than practicing that over and over again, it's beneficial to change the rhythms around. What this does is this reintroduces all of these notes in that order into our brain with a different rhythm. Therefore, our brain thinks, oh, this is new information, so it really has a nice level of focus when we do that, rather than just repetition without thinking. So the first rhythm that we'll do, I like to do 3 triplet patterns for groups of 4. So we move 2 16th notes, 8th note, 8th note, and we're going to move those 16th notes to different parts of the 8th note of that triplet. So first the 2 16th notes are at the first of the 8th notes of the triplet, like so. Now I might do that 4, 5, 6 times until I feel really comfortable with that. Next, we're going to move the 2 16th notes to the middle 8th note of that triplet. So ba, 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 ba. Again, I might repeat that 3, 4, 5 times. And then lastly, we move the 16th to the last 8th note of the triplet. So da, 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 da. that's the three triplet patterns that we can use for 4/16 notes. Now, one of those patterns will usually end up being more difficult than the other two. So what I do in my solo or my orchestra music or my chamber music is I'll write that rhythm above that passage so that I know this is the passage I need to practice the most. So I'll isolate that rhythm and practice it mostly when I have some practice time to work on that passage. Now, we can go a step further. We can use what my teacher calls French rhythms, so dotted rhythms with that same passage. So now I'm going to play it as a dotted 8th, 16th. And again, repeat that multiple times. And now I'm going to switch it to the 16th dotted 8th. Now you can keep going on with different variations. The more variations you do, the better your practice is. So you're reinforcing those notes and those patterns, and you're looking for where you're a little clumsy or a little weak in that certain passage or that certain rhythm, and then you can isolate those rhythms and really practice the passage with those ones, because that's going to help those weak fingers to get strengthened. So you may want to take it further and elongate maybe the first note of each group of 4. And then elongate the second note of each group of 4. And so on and so on. So this is also a nice way. And then when you go back, your fingers should be much more even and note security should be much improved. Now, one last technique that I use to practice technical passages is actually one that we use for articulation. But it works really well in learning notes in a technical problematic area. And this is called fingers ahead or prepared fingers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a very short staccato note on the first note, and as soon as I play that, I'm going to immediately finger the next note and prepare my fingers for what I'm going to play next. So it looks like this. So that is how I spend the majority of my practice time, using multiple versions of rhythms on the same passages like that to really help reinforce and enhance my technique. Now there's different rhythms you can use. Let's say the passage is in triplets. So then you choose to use 8th note 2/16ths, 2/16th notes, 8th notes, or a syncopated pattern of 16th, 8th, 16th. So you can be very creative in this. And also doing this with a metronome is also extremely helpful. So I hope that helps in your practice, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll include my email at the end. Thank you.